Books used to be my worst nightmare, but this year I've already read 4 books. So what changed, you might ask? It wasn't really motivation or some productivity hack, it was something so simple. I'm kinda embarrassed I didn't try it sooner. Hey peeps, welcome back to the channel. My name is Aziz and I'm just a regular guy trying to figure out his life just like everyone else. And on this channel I share what I learn, hoping that maybe what I share might help someone. And today I want to talk about something that's been a struggle for me since I was a kid. It's been years, and that's reading. Not just reading, but actually enjoying it and understanding what I'm reading. You know, it's weird because I never had trouble with literacy itself, specifically in school. I could read the words on the page just fine. I did okay in school, but I just couldn't read any books that were outside of my courses. And for years, I just accepted that reading wasn't for me without really questioning why. But that's getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where this all started. Growing up, I always wanted to be a reader. You know, those people who can talk about books for hours, who have shelves, full of books they've actually read. I wanted to be them. I wanted that knowledge, those insights in my head. I'd see people on the train completely lost in a book, and I think, what does that actually feels like? I envied my friends who could recommend books to each other, that get so excited talking about concepts they had learned and ideas that changed their thinking. Meanwhile, I'd be nodding along, pretending I knew what they were talking about when really I was just thinking about my next meal. I wanted that feeling of getting lost and learning something new, of forgetting where you are because you're so caught up in valuable information. People always, described reading as this great way to learn, but for me it was actually the opposite. It was actually work, because for me reading was pure torture. My mind wandered constantly. I'd read the same paragraph like 5 times and still have no idea what it said, and after a long day the last thing I wanted was to stare at pages full of text knowing my mind would immediately zone out. And honestly, I'm not exaggerating when I say I would zone out instantly. I'd read maybe 3 words and all of a sudden my brain would be somewhere completely different, thinking about what I needed from the grocery store, replying to messages, planning my weekend, thinking about something that happened 2 years ago. It didn't matter what type of book it was. Something about the act of reading made me zone out instantly. My friends always joke that I have reader's ADHD, and honestly, I don't think it's that far from the truth. I tried everything: reading before bed, reading in the morning when my mind was fresh, setting timers, telling myself, okay, it's just 10 minutes, you can do anything for 10 minutes, buying books about topics I was passionate about, getting recommendations from friends, but nothing worked. I'd start a book with the best intentions, but get about 5 pages in and then put it down and tell myself, just for today, but I never pick it up again. I had this collection of barely started books all over my home, all abandoned in the first few pages, constantly reminding me of my failed attempts at reading. Sometimes I'd force myself to finish a book and it would take me months, literally months, to read something other people knocked out in a weekend. And I wouldn't even enjoy it. I'd be so focused on trying not to zone out that I wasn't even absorbing the information at all. It was like my eyes would scan the words, but my brain refused to process them. I felt like I was missing out on so much knowledge, so many different perspectives. Like there was this whole world of ideas I couldn't even access because my brain just wouldn't cooperate with reading. There were moments I seriously wondered if something was wrong with me. Maybe I had undiagnosed ADHD, maybe I just wasn't smart enough, but that didn't even make sense because I could focus on other things. I could binge watch a TV series, for example, absolutely no problem. I could spend hours researching a topic online, jumping from article to article, just not books. And what made it worse was the judgment. Not judgment from others, but judgment from myself. In my head, not being a reader meant I wasn't intellectual enough. It meant I was choosing the easy way, which is TV and social media, instead of really challenging myself. And to be completely honest, there was this fear that if I couldn't focus enough to read a book, what else was my short attention span costing me in life? And as I got older, this started to really bother me. It started to get to my head. I realized I was limiting my growth. I remember this one time at work dinner, everyone was talking about this bestseller that apparently changed their perspective on everything. And they kept saying, you have to read it. And I'm sitting there thinking, no, you guys don't understand. I literally cannot read. I mean, I'll buy it, but it'll sit on my desk forever. Or maybe I'll read the first few pages, but finish it? Probably not. And honestly, I felt like such a fraud. Like I was pretending to be this growth-minded person, curious person, which I am, by the way. Like, don't get me wrong, I am. But I couldn't even do the most basic thing for self-improvement, which is reading a book. On top of that, my attention span was getting worse. All those hours scrolling through social media and watching short-form videos were training my brain to expect constant stimulation. The thought itself of sitting still with a book for hours seemed to me impossible. I started to worry about what this meant for my future. If I couldn't focus on reading now, in my 20s, what would my brain be like at 40, at 60, at 80? Would I ever be able to learn deeply about anything from reading books? Or am I just gonna have limited avenues for learning my entire life? And the worst thing is, I had this feeling that I was missing out on so much valuable knowledge. I had those questions in mind, like how many useful ideas would I never learn? How many insights would never improve my thinking? All because I couldn't get past this reading block. Hey, by the way, if any of this resonating with you and you want to show some support to your boy, hit the like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. It really helps the channel and keeps me going as well. Let's get back to the video. And here where things changed for me. Last year, which is a few months ago, I was hanging out with my friend who's a huge reader, like always has a book in hand, at restaurants, at the gym, probably even in the shower if they could figure out how. I was complaining about my reading problem for the millionth time, how I had just bought another book I was excited about, but I couldn't even get past chapter 2. And he suggested something that seemed almost too simple. Why don't you listen to the audiobook while reading the physical book? Something I never thought about before. My first reaction was, isn't that cheating though? It felt like using, training wheels as an adult. Plus, wouldn't that be super annoying, having someone read out loud while I'm reading? It seemed like it would be more distracting, not less. But my friend explained that he read an article about something called immersion reading or audio reinforced reading, whatever it's called, where we basically follow along in the physical book while listening to the narration. And apparently it was helping people with ADHD, dyslexia, and even just busy people who struggle to focus. I was a bit skeptical, but honestly, I was desperate enough to try anything. What did I have to lose anyways, except for the price of an audiobook? Which, by the way, could add up easily, don't get me wrong, but still. So the next day I picked up a book that seemed interesting. It was a sales book called Fanatical Prospecting. I also got the audiobook version from Audible, and that night I decided to give it a shot. I put in my AirPods, opened the physical book, and pressed play. The first few minutes kind of felt, weird, a little awkward. The speaker was reading slightly slower than my natural reading pace, and I kept getting ahead and then having to wait for the speaker. But after adjusting the playbacks to 1.2, something magical happened. I read for 2 hours straight without even checking my phone once. 2 hours without even realizing it. And when I finally decided to stop, it was 1 a.m. It was way past my bedtime, and I didn't even care because I was completely absorbed in the book and the knowledge I was gaining. For the first time in my adult life, I experienced exactly what everyone had been talking about. That feeling of being so into a book that you lose track of time. And you might actually ask what made this approach work when nothing else did. I've thought about this a lot, and I think there are a few key reasons. The first reason is having the audio track created this forward momentum. The speaker's voice kept me moving through the text page after page. There was absolutely no stopping to check my phone or think of other things because the book just kept going. When I zoned out for a few seconds, which still happened, to be honest, just not as frequent, the audio pulled me back in. I might miss, a sentence or two, but the speaker was still going and I could quickly catch up and get back on track. Before, with just reading, once I zoned out, which happened almost right away, I would have to consciously restart, which sometimes, just never happened. But now, when I couldn't quite understand the concept, having both the words on the page and the voice in my ear somehow made it clearer. It was like those two different inputs were reinforcing each other. They gave my brain multiple ways to process the information. And the most important thing, it took away the pressure. Reading wasn't this difficult task I had to force myself to do anymore. It became this experience that engaged multiple senses all at once and was actually enjoyable. Now, obviously, it wasn't always perfect from the start, of course. I had to experiment to find what worked best for me. Like I mentioned, the playback speed was important. 1.2 worked best for me in the beginning, although now I sometimes go to 1.5 depending on the speaker. The good thing is that Audible has this nice feature where it automatically remembers where you left off in the app. All you need to do is really just make sure you put a bookmark in the book so you can pick up from where you left off the next day. I also realized I needed to be intentional about creating the right environment. AirPods were essential to block out distractions, and I had to put my phone on Do Not Disturb and also having as little light as possible because I personally focus more in dark areas. But here's what actually blew my mind. I actually started to crave reading time. Me, the guy who always had an excuse to not read. I found myself looking forward to go to the next chapter. I think about the concepts and ideas that I learned during the day. I started finishing books, like actually reaching, the last page of the book content. Obviously not reading the references, but you get what I mean. And the first sales book that I finished it in like a week. And the best part is, after a while, I noticed I could read short sections of the book without the audio. If I was really into the content and, for example, my AirPods died, I could keep going on my own for a while without immediately zoning out. My brain was, building that focus muscle, getting used to staying engaged with texts. Over time, I started experimenting with different approaches. For some books, especially the dense ones, I still use the audio and physical combo the whole way through. But for lighter books, I might start with both and then switch to just reading, for example, once I'm hooked to the content. I also discovered that other people read this way too. And to be honest, I thought I was some weirdo doing this strange thing, but it turns out many others have found this helpful as well. I found online communities where people share similar experiences. People talk about how combining listening and reading transformed their relationship with books. And that's exactly what happened to me as well. Some people have learning challenges, others have, busy lives that leave them mentally drained for just reading. And many are just like me, people who want to read but struggle to maintain focus. One thing I read online really stuck with me. Someone described it as, I have it here, it's just too long, finally finding the key that unlocks a door I've been trying to open my entire life. And you know what? I felt that deeply. Even though I'm, just a few books in, I can totally relate to that feeling of finally breaking through a barrier that's been there for years. I've also noticed that this approach helps me better remember what I read. When I engage both seeing and hearing at the same time, the information sticks better. And it kind of makes sense because when you think about it, using multiple senses creates stronger memory connections. It's like taking notes during a lecture. You're processing, the information in different ways, so you're more likely to actually remember it. This one small change transformed my relationship with reading in ways I never expected. The guilt is gone. I used to feel like I wasn't smart enough because reading was so hard for me. Now I realize it's not about intelligence. It's really just about finding the method that works for your brain. I've tried this new way to experience books. There's something special about holding a physical book, feeling the pages, smelling that book smell, while at the same time having the speaker's voice bringing the words to life. It works together in a way that either format alone wasn't for me, and I've read 4 books already this year using this combination of reading and listening to audio at the same time. That's way more than I read in the previous, probably couple years. But it's not just about the number of books I've read. The quality of my reading experience has completely changed. I'm not just getting through books to say I've read them, I'm actually enjoying them. I'm connecting with the ideas, I'm understanding the content, learning new concepts, highlighting important points. And also reading has become this gateway to connecting with others too. I'm having conversations about books with friends and colleagues. I'm recommending books to people and actually knowing what I'm talking about and explaining what those books are about. Just last week, I was interviewing for a new job and I was actually able to recommend a couple of books to the person that was interviewing me. Like, can you imagine me recommending books during a job interview for my interviewer? That feeling of being left out of book discussions just gone. And honestly, I think it's also improved other areas of my life. My attention span seems better overall. I find myself being able to focus on conversations better, on work tasks, even on my own thoughts. It's like reading has become this exercise program for my brain to help me stay present and engaged with others and also with my own thoughts. One downside to this method, though, is it can get expensive. Buying both the audio and the physical version of the book kind of adds up over time. But I think about it as an investment because it technically is. And sometimes I still struggle, to be honest. There are days when even this technique doesn't work for me, when my brain just won't cooperate. And that's okay. I've learned to be patient with myself, to recognize that some days are just not reading days. I'm not saying that this approach will work for everyone as well. Maybe you're already a bookworm and this sounds absolutely ridiculous to you. Or maybe you've tried everything, including this, and still nothing worked for you. Our brains are all different and wired differently anyways. But that's the point. We're so quick to label ourselves, I'm not a reader, I hate books, I have no attention span. But maybe we just haven't found our unique way yet. All I know is that I stopped worrying about whether I was reading the right way and found the way that works for me to consume knowledge through books. And it turns out reading doesn't have to be this painful, frustrating experience I always thought it was. It can actually be one of the most rewarding parts of your day if you find your way to do it. What's been eye-opening for me is realizing that so much of our relationship with reading is colored by how we were taught to do it. In school, reading is often presented as this one-size-fits-all type of activity. You sit quietly, you focus on the page, and if you can do that, well, maybe reading isn't for you. But that's such a limited view. Some people comprehend better with hearing, others need complete silence. Some read best lying down, others standing up. Some need to take notes as they go, others want just to sit in a dark area with minimal light, just like me. The older I get, the more I realize that most of our I'm bad at something beliefs are really just I haven't found the right approach to that thing for my specific brain. And that's true whether we're talking about reading, exercise, productivity, learning, or almost anything you do in life. I've started applying this mindset to other areas of my life too. If I'm struggling with something, instead of thinking I'm just not good at that specific thing, I try to ask, how could I approach this differently? When I think about the years I spent beating myself up for not being a reader, I kind of feel a little sad, but also I am grateful that I found my way through it eventually and I kind of learned the hard way. So if you're like the old me, someone who wants to read but feels like your brain is working against you, maybe give this a try if you haven't already, or find your own weird hack that would work for you, because trust me, the knowledge, the ideas, and the insights inside of books are truly worth finding a way in. If you've got your own reading hacks or struggles, drop them in the comment. I'd love to hear, what works for you, or if you're going to try this approach. Now click the video on the screen if you want to know the single habit that completely changed the trajectory of my future.